Today, we'll be learning a little bit more about SCP-150, better known as the body-stealing parasite.
A man wakes up with a start. Did something just bite him? He looks down at his hand. Something definitely bit him.
Well, yeah, there's a giant blood welt.
He looks around for the culprit, but can't find it anywhere. He really hopes he doesn't have bed bugs. That's the last thing he needs right now. He'll have to keep his eyes open for potential pests. He doesn't want this to happen again, since the spot is already starting to itch and feel uncomfortable.
Ew, why is it moving like that?
Though, with no signs of other bugs. It must have just been a random insect that came inside his house to escape the winter cold. The spot on his hand felt a little rough for a day or two, but now he's pretty much forgotten all about it. Now what he really needs is some coffee before sitting down to another coding session.
So guys, the most weird thing about this is that this could happen to anybody. Like, everybody's probably been in that situation where you wake up with like a weird bug bite or like something like a welt or like a wart or a pimple, and you're like, I don't remember that being there. And most of the time, you're just like, oh, okay, that'll go away in a few days. It'll be fine. But this, we've seen the title, we've seen the thumbnail. This one we know is going to be a little bit different.
The man is in his kitchen trying to make a fresh pot of coffee, but finds he's having a hard time. He's not so much making coffee as he is making a mess. He knocks his favorite mug onto the ground, and decides that maybe he doesn't need coffee after all.
Did he not see his hand?
A couple of nights later, as the man is watching TV, he starts to cough. Just a little at first.
Does he not see
more and more
that
the
he's
coughing fits get
turning into
deeper too, like
a bug
coming from the very bottom of his lungs? He hopes he isn't coming down with something.
Okay, guys, I like to sort of theorize what the SCP does. Obviously, we've already seen what it does. It turns people into bugs after biting them. But the weird part is, first off, this guy doesn't realize that he's turning into a bug. Like, he started out making his coffee, and some of his fingers look like giant antennas. And then now he's sitting on the couch watching a show, and his entire arm looks like a ginormous spider leg. So it's very weird that it seems like the SCP kind of like takes over their brain, and then it makes them think that everything's fine. Maybe they're sick or something, but they don't realize, or maybe they just can't tell, that they are turning into a literal insect.
He hasn't left the house in days, so how could he have? Can bugs transfer colds?
Yes.
We'll have to look it up later. For now, he needs to do something about this cough.
Go to a doctor.
If it keeps up, he needs to go get some medicine. The man gets bundled up and heads out. It's lightly snowing as he walks to the pharmacy, and
somebody's going to see him, right?
In the sky, beautiful beacon of light on this dark winter evening. Inside the pharmacy, he finds the cold medicine section and picks out a cough suppressant. He takes it to the counter and decides to get a few candy bars too. He's developed a real sweet tooth these last few days. The man starts to cough again.
Oh no.
It's a good thing he's getting this medicine.
Okay, guys, I have a weird feeling that just like every other sort of parasite, this thing can spread like wildfire. So somebody needs to grab a flamethrower and burn this dude before it gets out of hand.
Several more days pass, and the man isn't feeling any better.
Oh, he looks horrible.
Just won't go away. He decides it's finally time to go see a doctor. As he sits in the doctor's office waiting room, he does his best to hold in his coughs, but he has a very hard time. The woman on the other side of the room is coughing too.
Is that the same woman?
It actually makes him feel a little better. There must just be something going around. A nurse comes into the waiting room and calls his name. The doctor is ready for him.
She has the same
thing. On the bed in the examination room when the doctor enters. He's looking over his medical records and doesn't even look up from his clipboard. He tells the man to take off his shirt so that he can be examined, and the man obliges.
I don't want to see it.
Okay, let's see what the trouble is.
Get your flamethrowers ready, boys.
He looks up at the man and screams.
Well, oh, that's gross. That is disgusting.
It didn't take long for the SCP Foundation to hear the reports of people's limbs metamorphosing into insectoid appendages. And they knew immediately what they were dealing with. This was another outbreak of the parasitic limb-transforming insect known as SCP-150.
It looks like a normal, like a tick.
SCP-150 is an obligate parasite,
bed bugs,
meaning that it requires a host for the completion of its reproductive life cycle. It bears a visual appearance similar to that of Cymothua exigua, another parasite that eats the tongue of a particular type of fish before replacing the tongue with its own body.
I thought they meant the fish.
SCP-150 engages in similar behavior, though it appears to exclusively affect humans. When a human comes in contact with the small bug-like organism, it will embed itself under its...
I really just want to grab like my flamethrower or like, I don't know, a bottle of hairspray and a lighter, and I just want to burn this thing alive.
New host's skin. Next, over the course of roughly 7 days, SCP-150 will burrow deep into the host's flesh and begin to cause numerous physiological changes to them. First, and most prominently, SCP-150 will begin a gradual process of altering the limb that is nearest to the original infection site.
Yeah, we've seen that.
SCP-150
Ew,
burrows deeper
is it the
and
bone?
consumes
Are we
the
watching
flesh.
bone and
It
meat?
excretes a substance that has the effect
I'm
of
gonna be
replacing the missing
sick.
sections of the limb with a hard, chitinous material
no.
that resembles one of its own appendages.
Oh,
Beneath the excreted substance forms a rudimentary nervous system that gives the host the ability to control the new limb as if it were their own.
wow.
As
That
it
part's
feeds,
impressive.
SCP-150 also secretes several chemicals that contain anesthetic, immunosuppressant, and transplant-rejecting properties that keep the host's body from responding to the changes, or
Okay.
even reacting at all. In fact, the host will often report that their new limb is completely normal. And
So I feel like the parasite obviously does a very, very good job of making it seem like this is a normal limb. They're giving it, you know, the host anesthetics so that he doesn't have any sort of pain. The weird part is, though, the cough. Like, I wonder why he's coughing so much. Maybe it's something that the parasite is purposefully doing. It seems like this parasite is very intentional with what they're doing. They're making it so that they could probably spread as fast as possible. So maybe they're actually making the host cough so that they can spread it to other people, because that's the best way to spread a virus.
feels stronger and more resilient after the transformation. SCP-150 will continue to feed for approximately 1 to 2 weeks.
I don't
and
like
as
that
it
word.
feeds on the nutrients
Dude, it's
within its host's body, it
feeding.
will begin to reproduce, creating eggs that it deposits directly into the bloodstream.
Ah, there it is,
While
guys.
the majority of these eggs will die off, enough usually survive to begin colonizing other parts of the host's body, where they will hatch and repeat the process of feeding, reproducing, and spreading more eggs.
Oh,
It
wow.
is theorized that it is capable of reproducing on its own, meaning that a single instance of SCP-150 is all it takes to create a new colony.
So it really is like a
Humans
virus.
infected with SCP-150 will sometimes report slight discomfort and issues with their fine motor skills during this period.
Well,
but
yeah,
will
he doesn't
usually
have
not express
fingers.
Any knowledge of what might be causing this.
Knowledge.
Eventually, SCP-150 eggs will reach the host's lungs, where the process of assimilating continues, this time replacing the lungs themselves.
I was
During
right.
this process, more eggs will be produced, laid, and then spread out of the body by the host's coughing.
So this guy is literally coughing up eggs, and if he is in contact with anybody else, they are going to catch this same exact thing, and then it'll just repeat constantly. Like, this has to be one of the most viral SCPs I've ever heard of. Like, this thing could spread like that and take over everything.
As many as 10,000 eggs will be produced during this period, approximately 1% of which will survive being expelled, find another host, and implant themselves. The assimilation process then spreads to the central nervous system, including the spinal cord and brain.
Oh,
But
so it's not
strangely,
done.
The host will show no signs that their consciousness or behavior have been affected in any
Oh.
way. In interviews with hosts of SCP-150, those who are unaware that they are infected have not expressed any knowledge of changes happening in or out of their body. When subjects are made aware that they have been infected, they will be able to point out the site of the original infection and agree that a change has taken place, but they seem to have no ill will towards their new chitinous appendages.
That's
and
so
will often
strange.
express positive feelings about it. D13732 and D016002 were both infected with the parasites, and the assimilation process was allowed to fully progress through all the stages. Following signs that D016002 was experiencing swelling of the brain, a decompressive craniotomy was performed, a procedure in which a portion of the skull is removed in order to relieve pressure on the brain. This surgery had the added benefit of giving Foundation researchers the chance to look at SCP-150's progress.
So if I had to guess, this SCP does not stop at just turning like one of the arms or like legs into an insect, whatever, appendage. It probably keeps going. It probably turns every part of the host into a bug until it literally is probably just a ginormous like termite bug that probably just walks around thinking that it's a normal person, when in reality, it has antennas coming out of its brain.
Firsthand. But after a flap of her skull was removed, the attending scientists did not find that her brain was swelling. They didn't find her brain at all.
The brain's
but
gone?
instead observed numerous instances of SCP-150 in the cavity where her brain should be.
What?
The D-Class had been partially anesthetized to numb her skull but remained conscious during the procedure, and the scientists asked her several simple questions to which she was perfectly able to answer.
How?
They began removing some of the parasites, and as they did so, her answers became slower and less clear. It appeared that the SCP-150 instances had not just eaten and
They are literally removing her brain cells, but her brain cells aren't actually brain cells. Her brain cells are brain bugs.
replaced her brain. They had become her brain.
What
For
the heck?
next experiment, they would use the instances of SCP-150 that had been removed from D-13732's nervous system after he had been euthanized following the discovery that his entire nervous system had also been replaced entirely by SCP-150.
What?
The parasites taken from his brain cavity were placed into D-016002s, and the results were nothing short of incredible.
What?
After observing a period of time where the organisms appeared to move and rearrange themselves within her skull, she regained consciousness.
But it was
Once
the
awake,
guy?
Not only did her cognitive functions immediately improve, when she was asked to state her name, she told them it was Michael, D-13732's name.
They performed a brain transplant, but it was actually a bug brain transplant. I've never seen anything like this, and I don't know if I want to.
It is unknown why SCP-150 engages in this peculiar life cycle, but the danger it poses to humans and the difficulty in keeping it contained has led the SCP Foundation to classify it as Keter.
Is anybody else
Some of the
itchy?
more erudite
Is that just
researchers
me?
have taken to calling the parasite the Ship of Theseus, a play on the philosophical notion that questions whether something that has had all of its parts replaced is still fundamentally the same, or if it has become something new.
So that's what it turns into
Perhaps
after a
the
while.
observation of those infected with SCP-150 can shed some light on this millennia-old question. Infected patients who are being studied are to be kept in level 3 biohazard containment cells.
Make
with
that
never
level
more than one
75.
infected host per cell. Cultures of SCP-150 adults and eggs are kept in vacuum-sealed glass flasks. In
Why?
the
Just
Site-42
destroy.
Infectious Materials Lab.
Burn them
And the
alive.
Foundation's
Get rid of
standard
them.
Pathogen handling procedures are required to be followed at all times.
No need to do
If
tests.
any instance of SCP-150
Destroy.
be found outside of containment,
Yeah,
it is
that.
to be immediately incinerated.
Do that.
Now go and
Incinerate.
watch another entry from the files of Dr. Bond.
I'm gonna call it there, ladies and gentlemen. That was the EBest, GBest SCP I've ever seen. Okay, I gotta go.